Welcome back. We got another Sergey knife video for you guys today. This one is on the F95 Anniversary Edition. Now, as you can see from the text on the knife, the F95 Anniversary Edition was designed by Sergey to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the F95 design. This design has seen many changes over the years in the blade profile configuration. The handle shape has changed subtly as well. The clip, the pivot system, all of that has really changed over the years. And so again, this knife was created to kind of celebrate that. Now, as you guys know, the F95 is named so after the 95mm blade length, which actually equates a little bit more to 4 inches of cutting length. Now, so since you guys pretty much know what an F95 is, if you're watching my channel, I assume, being the mid-sized knife compared to the bigger 111 and the smaller neon, I won't go into the size I won't measure the size too much here, but I will take a look at the weight, since this knife is using both titanium and bronze on the handle, which can definitely be a little bit weighty. So let's go ahead and take a look here. You can see that the knife weighs 148 grams exactly. So definitely heavier than I think what you would see in a normal F95. That's pretty much equal to 5.22 ounces here. And let's go ahead and take a look at the blade, because this blade, while at first glance looks like a F95 style blade, you wouldn't be wrong, but there are a couple of unique touches here. So first off, you can see that the blade has the 5/6 grind with extract cut. Now, we do see this similar style blade profile in the F95T revised and a couple of older knives as well, with Van Eyck steel in the revised, and also just various other blade configurations in the older single row bearing F95s. But as you can see here, we have a very nice satin finish, which we usually see reserved on the custom division knives. But in addition to that, you can see that there is also a very prominent blade groove that outlines the extract cut. This also continues on to blade chamfering, or chamfering here on the top of the spine of the blade here, that we see on both sides as well. Now, this chamfer continues because of the groove, and this is something that is just a little bit different than what you see on a normal production F95. I think this gives it a little bit of a modern touch that makes the knife stand out a little bit from other knives with a similar blade profile. Now, as you can see here on the flipper tab, we also see a groove as well. We're starting to see this blade groove milling on some of the fancier knives. The custom division F3 NS is another recent knife that comes to mind, and also on the production Quantum as well. So Sergey likes to put these matching touches, so you can see here that this groove on the flipper tab does match with the groove on the extract cut here. Now, taking a look at the other side of the blade, you can see that the blade steel is S90V. This is a premium steel for Sergey, and which is one that you would normally see on something like a custom division knife. Again, when paired with this satin finish, you can really see that this is a pretty nice blade. The finish on it is also that finer media tumble that you see on the custom divisions. That is, again, finer than what you see on a normal production knife. Now, moving on to the handle here, you can see that the knife has a nice satin finish on it, on the main parts of the handle. On the top and the bottom of the handle, we have this dark bronze anodization, that matches well with the bronze inlay. This satin finish is quite nice, actually, since, as you can see here in direct light, you get a really nice satin look, which goes well with the satin flats on the blade. But if you look at it at a very steep angle, you can actually see that it's a tumbled satin. Now, this is really nice since it kind of gives you that combination of a really nice look when looking at it straight on. But that satin will help hide any wear that the knife encounters, which I think is something that some of the older custom division knives that had satin finish, I believe the F95 carbon fiber inlay version, had a normal satin finish, which definitely was prone to scratching easily. So having this chaotic satin as I think Sugargrove calls it, will make it a lot easier to resist those scratches. Now, as you can see here, the inlay is made again of bronze. There is the 10th anniversary text, which I think could be designed a little bit better. We'll talk about that later, but it's flanked on both sides by this very fine milling. The inlay, like all other Sugargrove inlays, stands a little bit proud of the handles of the knife, and it gives you a very nice tactile feel when holding it. You can see here on the back of the knife, we have that lanyard hole that is very reminiscent reminiscent of the F95 design. You can see here on the back, we have a standoff, which again is very reminiscent of the F95 design. But if for you guys with keen eyes out there, you can see that there is not a screw here on the back. That is because this knife is blind screwed on the rear, like what you would see on a custom division Neon or a Quantum. This is the first time that we've seen this on an F95 specifically. We've seen it on the Neon, custom division Neons, and also on the custom division Quantum. But this is the first time I believe that we've seen this on an F95. And I think it really helps contribute to that clean look, which is nice to go along with the wave milling on the inlay. Now, moving over to the lock side, you can see we have this pivot system here. There is a second screw here that helps secure the main pivot screw, because this knife is actually on washers. If you take a look here at the engraving on the handle, which is reserved for the pivot system, you can see that it's using washers. This is the shape of the washers. They're actually milled with some grooves in it for retaining lube, and they're also keyed to prevent them from rotating in the knife. So the reason why the secondary screw is necessary is because the washers are very sensitive to timing of the pivot screw. So once you get the action on the knife exactly where you want with minimal blade play, you can go ahead and lock this down, and that will keep the main pivot screw from unscrewing. Really nice thought, and this actually harkens back to the original F95 design. Before they had multi-row, before they had single row ball bearings, they had a normal washer system, not a pivot bushing washer like you see on a Sebenza 21 or the Hati. They had a normal washer system, which was very sensitive to the pivot tension. So to make sure that the pivot screw didn't tighten or untighten, we had this lock screw here on this side. But I do believe that the lock screw on the old knife was Torx, and now we have a more modern Sugargrove style flathead screw here, which is kind of an update to the design. Moving on, you can see the lock bar insert screw is also done in that Sugargrove style flathead, and not in Torx like you would see on a normal production knife. Again, this is much closer to custom division, which is something that you do see, that unique Sugargrove lock bar insert screw. And again, this kind of classifies this knife as more of a limited edition, which it is. I think they're making 100 of these. Going on here to the lock side inlay, you can see it mirrors the flat part, the unmilled part that the show side has with the text as well, but with no text, of course. And as you can see here, we also have the clip, which is blind screwed, like you see on the custom division knives. The flats of the clip are also finished in that tumbled satin. And of note as well, you can see here that the clip is also milled in with these grooves to kind of match the inlay. This is something that you don't see on the normal F95 clip as well. Also of note here, besides the rear body screw being blind screwed, is that it is also of the smaller diameter that will clear the clip when you remove it. The older F95s had a larger clip, or had a larger rear body screw, Chicago screw assembly, which would actually be retained when you try to, when you remove it from this side. Since this diameter is larger, the clip would actually prevent it from coming out, which is something that they've changed on the F3NS and the Quantum for that reason. Lastly, we can take a look here at the inlays. Unlike other Sugarov knives where the inlay, where the handles, the titanium handles of inlay knives are slab-sided and there's just a pocket milled on the front to contain the inlays, since these are metallic inlays, the entire knife is skeletonized, including the inlays, and the inlays are secured with these blind screwed Shurgorov style flathead screws, which I believe are pretty much exactly the same screw dimensions as the lock bar insert. This is just a really nice touch here that you can see the internal details of this knife are definitely not untouched. And a lot of thought has been put into the design. I mean, if you can see here, the inlay itself is not even flat. The ridges on the inlay milling mate up exactly with the skeletonization on the handles, which is just excellent. So the inlays pretty much fit like a glove into the titanium handles. Now, the washer action, again, is very unique, and I think really what sets this knife apart from normal F95s. It's pretty much impossible to get a Shurgorov these days on washers. The Hattie R, which had a pivot bushing system, has since been discontinued, and Sergey does release a few customs with a pivot bushing washer system. However, although Sergey says that washers, I think, is actually his favorite pivot system, there's just a lot more effort to finish and get perfect compared to the double row roller bearings, which is why you see the customs usually in that double row roller bearings system. So it's really neat to find a Shurgorov on washers, and I believe this is actually my first time handling one for any significant length of time. I'm really impressed with the smoothness, and these knives do come out of the box with a fairly typical washer action, but if you spend the time and really get it dialed in, you can get a very nice action that isn't 100% drop shot compared to MRBS, but it's pretty damn near close. And again, the washer feel is just completely different than the bearings. It just feels smoother, but in a more controlled way. I know a lot of people really like the washers since it prevents the ingress of dirt and other fine particles better than ball bearings or roller bearings. Personally, I haven't had any issues with my personal carry knife, which does run on roller bearings, but I do understand that sentiment as well. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This text here. A lot of people have been talking about it, and I definitely understand where some of these people are coming from. I think that the text perhaps could have been better integrated into the knife. Perhaps maybe if it was to remain on the inlay, having it more stylized, perhaps maybe placed differently or in a smaller font, or maybe, again, I think something different could have been done with this to make it flow a little bit more with the design. I think that this stands out in contrast to a knife that is otherwise very well designed with some very unique features. Perhaps maybe even having it on the inside of the handles here on this section, like what you see on the custom division knives, would have been really nice as well. I understand that Sergey is proud of the 10th anniversary of the design, but I think, again, it could have been better integrated with the overall design of the knife. But if you can really get past that, or perhaps maybe even if you like the looks of this text here, there really is a lot to like about this knife. I didn't think that this review would take so long, but there are a lot of very small changes to a normal production F95. The subtle differences in the blade profile here that at first glance looks like a normal F95, but really has a couple of subtle changes, to some upgrades such as the blind screw body screw here, the really amazingly executed machining on the inlays, and that unique pivot screw assembly for the washers. There's just a lot of really unique stuff that I think puts a really nice cap on the decade that the F95 has been around for. So again, if you can kind of get past the text, or if you like it, this would be a really great knife to carry. Again, I feel like these will be a lot more accessible as well, since they're making 100 of them compared to the 50 or so custom division knives. I think would be a great knife to use, and just a great knife to have in your collection as well. Which honestly, I think people will have them around as collector items, since it's commemorating such a important year in the design. But I digress. I like to have knives that I can carry. And this one can definitely fit that bill with that washer system. So I hope you guys enjoy this review, and I hope to see you guys next time.